near the end of the year.
Oh my gosh, I know.
How do you spell your last name? Jumes. Looks like James, but with a U.
Okay, your first name?
Michael, Michael.
PhD or?
PhD, yes.
I don't get to see you guys as much.
It's behind the scenes
Yeah. So how's everybody doing?
overall.
Yeah. Always need more funding though, right? I don't know if anyone needs your CV. I don't know if they're going to ask for that at all.
But I didn't bring one.
Well, that's okay.
Never heard it.
Ah, I know. All right, court is calling 2023 CR 11452 and 2023 CR 11453, State versus Jesus Prado. Could I have parties announced?
And Ernest Acevedo and Jonathan Alvarado, or Mr. Prado, who was also present.
All right. And so your expert witness defense is Dr. Jumis?
That is correct, Judge.
All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. If you'll state your name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Thomas Jumes, Jumes.
Right. All right, so off the record for a moment, Cindy. One, everyone needs his qualifications and what is specifically those qualifications are that relates to testimony he's going to give with your client. So if we can tighten it and not make this a let's cross-examination or life history, that will make things run smoothly. All right, Cindy, we're ready. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Jumis, can you give us the brief version of your resume and qualifications as a psychologist, how you've been trained and how you're certified?
Sure. So I earned a bachelor's degree in psychology at UT Austin. Went to graduate school, completed a PhD, a doctoral degree in clinical psychology at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas. The program is accredited by the American Psychological Association, and I completed an accredited internship. I took work in my postdoctoral year at a brain injury rehabilitation center, and I completed my licensure requirements. I was licensed to practice psychology in 1997. I've been continuously licensed since that time.
Okay, now specifically to the brain injury, that's something I've asked you to give me an opinion about in the past and have you do an evaluation that potentially included some of that information, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the court your experience in being a psychologist for people that were suffering from brain injuries?
So I trained in clinical psychology. That's a discipline that is focused on the assessment and treatment of mental illness. And so as a part of the training, there's coursework and practicum to learn about neuropsychological assessment. And in the course of my work life, I worked for about 3.5 years at a brain injury rehabilitation center. I worked under the supervision of a neuropsychologist in Dallas, and I provided largely treatment for cognitive rehabilitation for people with acquired brain injuries. That were things mostly like head injuries and strokes, sometimes for a person who may have had a tumor or other pathology, and the treatment centered on rehabilitation to help translate compensation strategies in areas of cognitive weakness using the preserved cognitive strengths to help a person adapt and adjust and improve in areas so that they could return to functioning in their life.
Okay, and so in that course of training, there are also testing procedures that you've been trained as a doctor to test for deficits or functioning of the brain that psychologists in this field learn.
Yes, and there's a divide in the practice of psychology in clinical. If you think about clinical psychology broadly, it's like a big umbrella. And one component of clinical psychology is the specialty of neuropsychology. I'm not a neuropsychologist, but my training and experience allow me to conduct a range of assessments that can help identify broad cognitive strengths and weaknesses. It's common for psychologists, clinical psychologists like me, to conduct intelligence testing. Some people have additional skills for achievement and academic testing. They might head into schools and help in school psychology. And part of looking at a person's mental status includes understanding some basics about their cognitive skills like memory and concentration and problem solving and judgment and aspects of decision making and insight, which are cognitive and they overlap with neuropsychology.
Okay, let me stop you there because
Sure.
that's a lot of information. This is just to qualify you. Now, you have been qualified as an expert hundreds, if not thousands of times in court, probably. Is that fair to say?
Surely hundreds.
Okay. Additionally, as a psychologist and as a doctor, you are qualified to testify about the effects of depression on a person,
Yes.
especially if you do a history with them.
Yes.
You're qualified to testify about mental health observations of somebody, a patient that you see,
Yes.
and you've testified about things along those natures in many, many cases in Texas courts.
Yes.
And specifically in regards to testing for brain injuries, that's part of your experience and practice.
Yes.
And part of your training, and so you're qualified to testify those things that you've talked about, correct?
I believe I am. Yes.
All right, I'll pass it.
You may proceed.
Hello, Dr. Jewett.
Hello.
We've never met before, correct?
I don't believe we have. I mean,
Sure. My name's Montana. I just have some questions for you. You said that you are not a neuropsychologist, but you can conduct assessments that can identify the strengths and weaknesses in a person's brain or their mental cognition. Is that fair?
yes, I think generally that's fair.
And I may use the wrong terminology. But assessing whether or not someone's brain is having trouble functioning is not the same thing as assessing why someone's brain is having trouble functioning. And that's outside the purview of a psychologist, correct?
Well, I think there's two questions that you're asking. For the first, I'd say yes. And for the second, I would tend to disagree. We know a lot about the brain, and we sure don't know everything about the brain.
Okay. You're not a neuropsychologist though, correct?
Correct?
You're not a neurosurgeon.
Correct.
Okay. And your training that you discussed, when you said that you were in a brain injury rehab center, that was an internship in the 90s?
So it was part of my work while I was in my postdoctoral year, and I got my supervision license at that center.
Okay, and that was in the 90s.
Yes, ma'am, late 19.
Okay. And the 3.5 years that you worked in the brain injury rehab center, that was under the supervision of someone who was an actual neuropsychologist or neurosurgeon?
Neuropsychologist, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what time frame was that?
I worked there between like 1995, 96 to 98.
Okay. And then after your time working in this brain injury field, I guess, in the nineties. Did you move on to a different study of psychology?
So at that time, I took work at what was the Vernon State Hospital, and I worked with justice involved patients, some who were referred by courts to restore competency to stand trial, and others who had been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay, and that's been the primary purpose or the primary field that you have worked in since you took that job at Vernon State Hospital, is assessing insanity or competency issues, correct?
That's correct.
And that's not involving brain injuries, correct?
Well, lots of people I see have had some kind of neurocognitive insult. A lot of justice involved people have had head injuries. Some have had toxic exposure from drug use, and others have developed Alzheimer's and find themselves justice involved. And so, in the field I'm in, I take all comers, and some of them have no mental illness. Some have severe mental illness without any significant neurocognitive involvement, and others, the case is almost exclusively neurocognitive.
Okay. But I guess my understanding, and you're here to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of psychologists is that you're trained in assessing mental function, not assessing the reason for the failures of the mental function or the reason for the problems of the mental function. That is a medical doctor, a DO, a neuropsychologist, a neurosurgeon.
So I would disagree with you. A neuropsychologist, for example, is not a medical doctor. They would be a psychologist with specialty qualifications to take a variety of test results and parse the results to more specifically maybe localize the area of the brain involved, and to look at the what would be called ecological validity of the test findings against a person's everyday living, to help inform treatment to improve a person's functioning in those kinds of areas. We know a lot about the areas of the brain and how they influence certain things like memory or executive functioning or language processing. So there's a lot that we know, and psychology can help with understanding, and neuropsychology can be more specific with understanding those brain behavior relationships.
And you said you've been qualified as an expert hundreds of times, but that was insanity and competency evaluations, correct?
Yes, ma'am, largely.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in assessing a traumatic brain injury or a physical medical brain injury as a explanation for mental health issues?
I don't know how to answer that. Again, so much of my work involves in every case that I do, in every case, I consider cognitive function. I consider things like memory. In every case that I do, I consider attention.
Sorry. Do you need cough drops, water?
So in every case, I consider cognitive function, but I can't look back and recall any one case where I was called to focus specifically on neurocognitive factors.
I guess I'm going more towards structural. If we're talking about physical brain injury, like a TBI, a frontal lobe injury, some kind of physical injury, those diagnoses are reserved for the medical doctors, correct?
I would disagree. A neuropsychologist can render a diagnostic.
But you're not a neuropsychologist.
That's correct.
So you can't render that kind of an opinion.
So I think my qualifications and, mine is to function within a standard of practice. A psychologist would rely on the diagnostic and statistical manual to establish, for example, whether someone might have what's called a neurocognitive disorder in the DSM. Yep. So that's,
Saying why they have that neuro.
I would agree with you. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. Sorry.
Say why somebody has a neurocognitive.
So I would agree with you that you're talking about cause, and I would tend to agree.
Yes, so what level of expertise or what are you offering his testimony for?
Judge, I'm offering his testimony for his medical history, his evaluation, the testing he did. There is testing that he's absolutely qualified for that tests cognitive functioning, and there's some particular testing that he has observations about with Mr. Prado that are significant toward whether there's a deficit that's unusual that can be related to a traumatic brain injury. He has a history of traumatic brain injury in his medical history. He's going to call. I'm going to ask him to testify about depression and the facts and circumstances of how that can affect somebody's behavior or decision making. And so on that level, I think he's clearly qualified to test to that. He's trained in all of those things I'm going to ask him about. He has experience in all of those things I'm going to ask him about. And again, he's been qualified as an expert hundreds of times in Texas. And so I don't think there's any issue as question whether he's qualified to do all the things. The things he's done with Jesse, he's trained to do, and he has done with other people in his practice.
All right, State.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Duman, well, I don't doubt his qualifications as far as discussing what mental health issues he may see present in the defendant, what mental functional deficits he sees present in the defendant. I think he's qualified to assess that. I don't think that he is qualified, and I think he agreed to give an opinion as to this jury as to why that happened, whether it's from a traumatic brain injury, a hit on the back of the head, a frontal lobe injury, the defense counsel mentioned in an opening statement. He has stated he is not that kind of a doctor. He's not qualified to give an opinion as to the causation. He can talk about what he sees as far as his appearance and any functional issues that he may have, but not why they exist. I think that is outside of the realm of his expertise. He has been qualified lots and lots of times as an expert, but as he said, never in that field in assessing that the causation. He's been qualified as an expert in competency evaluations and sanity evaluations, and that is not why we're here. So that expertise and the fact that he's been qualified 100 times for that reason is not relevant to his qualifications for this particular hearing. Additionally, what he said about his training and experience in brain injuries was 30 years ago. The majority of his career, his most relevant, most present, most recent experience has been sanity and competency, not in assessing brain injuries. So we don't think he's qualified to give an opinion to that extent.
All right. It'll be overruled